Hey you guys, it's Peter and welcome to my channel. Peter Likes Books, and I am back for the second part of my Q&A that I started the other day. So people were asking me in the comment section, or I think one person asked, like, where did you come up with the question? So I said this in my video the other day, but I put up a post on my Instagram story. I mean, this is a while ago. This is from April 4th. I think I put it up there, or the 3rd I would have put it up there, so I copied the questions on the 4th. I put up a post asking for like bookish questions to do a bookish Q&A, and I actually got more questions than I thought I did. I said last week how many questions, or the other day how many questions it was, and I actually got more because I didn't get to all of them the other day. So I thought that I would do a second part to finish the bookish Q&A. I said this in my video the other day, and I'm going to say it again, and a couple people did leave questions. If you guys would like me to do another part to this down the road, if you have questions, anything to do with any of my reading, my thoughts on authors, anything, put it in the comment section below, and I will do another Q&A. I mean, not the next video, but down the road I'll do another Q&A. So just put that in the comment section below if you have any questions about anything to do, favorite authors, any opinions of authors, reading, anything like that. Put it in the comment section below and I will answer that. Okay, so let's get into the questions today. So somebody asked me, what's your writing process? Are you a planner or a pantser, or fly by the seat of my pantser, I guess? You know, I'm a little bit of both, to be honest with you. And I will say this, I am not a committed writer. I wish I was. So I have if you watch my vlog or watch my other videos, you know that there is a recovery Christmas book that I am planning to write. My plan is hoping to put it out after Halloween. And then I want to make a movie off of that, and I don't know if it's realistic that I'm going to be able to make the movie off of that this year, because I wanted to film it during the winter time, and it's not a lot of snow in Indiana during that time or whatever. So I don't know how I'm going to do that. I'm going to figure it out, but it's either going to happen this year or next year or whatever. I'll figure it out. But I would say I'm a little bit of both. So I'm definitely like an outliner. In my phone right now, I can tell you I probably have 5 cozy mystery first novel like ideas, many of which are completely outlined. I have characters, full characters with names written out, so I plan all that kind of stuff. But then I think the rest of it kind of goes organically. When I wrote my book, the before, now, and after then, I can remember I talked to several authors back in the day about their writing process. Or I talked to Ellen Hopkins, I talked to J. Bell. There were a couple different authors that I talked to that I was reading at that time, and asked them kind of about their writing process and things like that, which was very interesting to me. And most of them said something to the effect of like, you know, it starts with an idea and then you can take an outline and you can like turn it into and be more organic. I think with like a mystery or a thriller, one of the things I'm finding is that the release of information over a period of time in a book so that it becomes a mystery or a thriller is very important. So the timing of that is important, which has to be a little bit more planned. I would definitely say I'm more of like a fly by the seat of my pants kind of writer. Like I'm definitely more organic. And definitely when I do write, like I might write 4 days in a row and then not at all. I might write like 30 pages of a book that will never see the light of day, you know, and then just be like, okay, I don't ever throw anything away. I keep everything. But I have like, I think it's like 160 pages that I've typed of like a memoir of like being in treatment that I think maybe at some point I read on some channel or another. But I just wrote that, you know, it was like telling my story, and that was very, very organic. And I don't think I'll ever put that out or whatever. I might put bits and pieces of it out at some point, you know, into something bigger. But that was years ago that I did that. So I'm definitely more of an organic writer, but it comes from a plan. When I wrote the book originally, the only book that I've written, when I wrote it, I can remember that I started with like the beginning of it, the preface, and then the first thing I wrote was the end. I actually wrote the end first because I could see in my head how I wanted the whole thing to end, and I wrote the ending before I wrote the rest of the book. So I don't know if other authors do that, but that's what I did in that situation. But interesting question, thank you. Somebody asked me, did you read your own adventure books as a kid? I love them. Choose your own adventure books. Yes, I loved them as a kid. I can remember, so when I would go out of town with my dad on weekends, my dad had a sailboat in Saugatuck, Michigan, and he and his business partner had one. And so we would go up there, like my dad and myself, and he and his wife and their 2 kids, and we would go up there in the summer a lot on weekends. And on the way, my dad would stop, like, because he would always want to get a book too, and he would stop at a bookstore and he'd say, you can get whatever you want to get. I was always real excited about it. But somebody else on here asked me about libraries. Both of my parents were really, you know, just huge proponents of books when I was growing up. Always had lots of books. I mean, I had a library in my house that I grew up in. We actually had, like French doors, you walked in, it had floor-to-ceiling bookshelves all around the room. So I actually had a library in the house that I grew up in. So books were a huge deal to both my parents when I was growing up. They both loved books. My mom, her entire life till she got sick and went into the hospital, always loved going to the library. I can remember going to the library as a little kid, and my mom, you know, would say, "Get as many books as you want, but you got to read them." And I would have this huge stack. She'd say, "You're not going to read all those books." "I promise, Mom, I promise," you know. But when I would go on vacation and I love the smell of libraries, and to this day I still love libraries. When my Dad and I would go out of town for the weekend. My dad would go to like Walden Books or B. Dalton or something. He'd say, "You can get whatever you want." And I can remember I got the Roald Dahl books one time, James and the Giant Peach. I can remember there's a couple different books, like the collections that I would get. Like they'd have like 3. Pippi Longstocking was one of them. I can see that one because I still have it in my basement. I saved it. The Ramona books, I have those. A bunch of the Clock in the House of the Clock in Its Walls by John Blair. So I had a couple of those. The Blue Figurine or whatever, Shadow of the Blue Figurine or whatever those books were called. I had a couple of those, but one of them was like a set of like 4 choose your own adventure books. One was like a pirate. One was like you're in a desert. I can kind of see the covers of it. I must have those in the basement. I have all my books that I'm saving like in a certain area, and the rest of them are ready to be donated and taken out of here. And so, but yeah, I loved those. And I actually, a couple years ago, I found one, and it was about a beauty pageant in the South. I saved this one too. I have it in my basement. I think I showed it on here one time. It's about a beauty pageant in the South and this hair salon and it's a choose your own adventure, like if you win the pageant or not. It's this pink book. It's really cute. It's for adults, so yeah, I loved those as a kid. I still love them today. I wish they made them for adults. Somebody asked me, "Are you a fan of Ice Planet Barbarians?" This is so funny that you asked me this because I feel like I just mentioned this in a vlog not too long ago. We were in the airport coming back from... Where were we coming back from? It was just recently. So one of the things I love to do... It was when we were in Miami the last time. One of the things I love to do is go to like the stores and the airport, and usually the ones that have like the candy and the popcorn and the Cokes and everything like that, they'll have a bunch of books. And so I'll go and I'll read the backs of the books, and then I'll like screenshot. Here, I'll show you. Let's go back to, we came back on, was it April 1st, I think? Let me look, all photos. So it should be from April 1st. Okay, 11th, 9th, 8th, 7th, 6th. I took a picture of that book, which is so funny that you say this. Where are the books on here? Was it the 31st we came back on? It was the 31st we came back on, yeah. Okay, so here it is. Barbarian Alien. So see, I take these pictures when I'm in the bookstore of books that look kind of good for me, or good to me. This one is called Swift and Saddled. I actually looked it up. It's a series. I'm not real interested in it. This one is called Death in the Dark Woods by Anna Lee. So I take pictures of books I see in bookstores. And then this one is The Fortunes of Jaded Women and that one looked good to me. So I'll take pictures of books that look good to me, and then I'll look them up when I get home on Goodreads, and then sometimes buy them on Audible or whatever. Interestingly enough, about the book that you asked me about, when I looked it up because I wanted to listen to it on Audible, somebody said to me it was like a fantasy alien kind of, I think somebody might have said it was erotica. I don't know. But anyway, they said it like got really famous during the lockdown or something. The interesting thing is that on Audible, they only have it in Spanish, and I'm currently learning Spanish, so I'm not up to par with like listening to a full audiobook in Spanish. I couldn't find anywhere they had it in English. If they're good, let me know in the comment sections. I'm open to reading anything. So let me know. And did I miss a whole page of questions? No. Let me know in the comment section below if they're good. So I don't really, that's the first time I'd ever seen or heard of them. Somebody said, "I'm new to your book club. Do you all discuss the book? I want a book club I can discuss it with." A true crime book club. We have taken a hiatus on the live stream, but this Sunday is our first live stream back. It will be on Facebook, on the Facebook group, which is listed below. To join, you only have to answer 3 questions, and then you're accepted and agree to like the guidelines and rules and stuff like that. For Peter's book club, the book that I pick every month, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to do a review over here. And I think I talked recently about the Amy Tintera book, but going forward in May, I'm going to start doing a review of every book that we read, and I'm going to try to catch up. I have them all listed in my book, well, my video ideas for BookTube to do reviews of like the past 6 books. So I will be doing those. What are your top 5 books, each from a different genre? Oh God. Okay. That is really, really hard. Each from a different genre. I'm just gonna kind of go with where my head goes. Denise Mina, Conviction, is probably one of my favorite thrillers. Top 5 one of my favorite thrillers. Classic, absolutely, To Kill a Mockingbird. Romance, Lucky by Jackie Collins. Young adult, Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Ayler Sainz. An addiction genre, my favorite. You know, it's fiction, and it's also by the same author. I'm going to say Last Night I Sang to the Monster by Benjamin Ayler Sainz, which is about a guy that goes to a treatment facility. It was so profound and so well done. It's a fiction book. It's not a memoir, but it's so well done. If you've only read what's it called, Aristotle and Dante, you should really read his other books. He is such a beautiful writer, and most of his books are adult books, and he is such a fantastic author. So there you go, 5 different books. Authors using AI images to promote their books. Do they? I don't know much about AI, I'll be real honest with you. I don't know what you mean by that, so I don't even know how to answer that. Tagging authors in reviews that are less than 5 stars, yes or no? I mean, why would you tag an author in a book review that you did 1 star? I mean, just to hurt their feelings? I don't know why you would do that. I don't usually tag an author unless it's like a book that, like, if like I'm announcing a book, I might tag an author like for a book club. Or if it's like I'm just blown away, like it is the best book I've ever read. But other than that, like, why would you tag an author in like a 2 or 1 star? I don't know why you would do that. Maybe I've done that before, I don't know, but I don't think I have. If I have, I don't know why I would have. I wouldn't do it today. What is a book that everyone loves that you loathe? Okay, I don't like Ruth Ware. The Woman in Cabin, whatever, I thought was horrible. I thought it was so predictable. That's one book that a lot of people were talking about back in the day. Colleen Hoover, I can't get into it at all. What is another book that's like a lot of people are talking about? I feel like there was a book not too long ago and I was just like, I cannot get into this at all. I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of them. I'm very, like, black and white when it comes to books. Like, I know what I like and I know what I don't like, you know? I feel like there's a book that I'm just like, I don't know. Those would be 2 of them. Have you ever read sci-fi? And if so, what's your favorite book author in the genre? I have read quite a bit of sci-fi. I talked to my last one about how I really loved the book, Replay by Ken Grimwood. Who's the guy that wrote the one about the Mars book? What's that called? Hold on a second. Let me look this up. Mars book. Man on Mars, or whatever that book is called. You guys know what I'm talking about? Well, I can't think of what that book is called. The Martian by Andy Weir. Okay. What's Andy Weir? There's another book by him. It's like Lunar or something. And I really, really liked that book a lot. Is it called Hail Mary? Hail Mary. I really liked that book. Oh, I'll tell you a book that I loved. And they made it into a movie, was the one about, I can't remember any of these books' names today. Movie about living in an avatar. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? An avatar. This is not going to pull this up. What is that? If I could remember somebody that was in that movie. Book, what was that book called? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? It was a book. That was sci-fi. And I read the book and I loved it. And it's about the Easter eggs and the guy. What is that book called? Why can't I think of it? It's like, I loved that book. So many people were talking about it on BookTube and it was recommended to me. And then they ended up making it into, what was that movie called? Why can't I think of it? Book about living in a computer game. I don't know what you would call that book. I know people are like shouting it out right now at the screen. The Simulation Hypothesis. No, that's not what I'm talking about. What is that book called? It's the one where they talk about Easter eggs at the end of it, and the guy's like living in the pod, and he's like simulated, and he's got like the avatar that he goes, and like they go to school and stuff like that. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? It's like on the tip of my tongue. It's like 3 words or 4 words. I can like hear it on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, I love that book so much. And I read it. And I actually read something else by him too. And I loved it. I loved that book. Oh, I'll tell you another one. So I love that book. The movie I loved, but I didn't think it was as good as the book. Whatever the book is that I'm talking about. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Anyway, I guess I could put in like best. Oh, look. This is... Best YA sci-fi. It should probably come up in that, shouldn't it? Oh no, it's gonna come. Hunger Games. Hunger Games I liked. Like the whole series, read that. Defiant. The Weight of Our Stars, Made of Our Stars. Okay, what is it called? Why can't I... Oh, somebody will leave it in the comment section below. But you guys know what I'm talking about, don't you? Okay, so anyway, Hank Green's books about the alien coming to Earth, whatever, and like those books, I read that series. I don't even remember what those books are either, but I could look up Hank Green's books. I love those books too. So yeah, I do like some science fiction. It has to be kind of dumbed down for me. Oh, I'll tell you who I love, Blake Crouch. Blake Crouch's science fiction. What was that? I can't remember any book names today. This is like, I feel like I'm driving around with Tanya Jean. She can never remember any book names. She's like, I read this book and it was great, but I can't remember what it was called. Hold on a second. Blake Crouch. So he has this book, and actually they're coming out with a TV show about it. I read like The Pines. I love The Pines. That was a book that he wrote years ago, series. Dark Matter, Recursion, love all those books. Yeah. There's a couple of Upgrade is the newest one. I haven't read that one yet. And that's probably not his newest one though. That's a sequel to Wayward. No, that was 2012. The Pines, they turned into a movie with Matt Damon, or with Matthew. God, why can't I remember anything today? Do you guys remember that? Pines movie, TV show. What is this guy's name? I am like losing it today. I watched too much of The Walking Dead last night. Wayward Pines is what the TV show was called. And it had Matt Dillon. It doesn't even say his name on here. I just remembered. Okay, so Matt Dillon was who was in it. And I love the TV show. And so then I read the series a couple years ago, and it was fantastic. So there's some science fiction I like, but it has to be like, I like, well, anything zombies too, but would we consider that science fiction? Probably not. Okay, let's go on to the next question because I can't remember anything. Any book you have read that you have hated? Any book that you have read that you have hated? Truman Capote, the true crime book that he wrote. I did not love that book. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? The one that like defined true crime? Truman Capote. I could not get into that book to save my life. What was the book that he wrote? Why am I not finding? In Cold Blood. I could not get into that book to save my life. So that book, I wouldn't say I hated it. I don't really ever hate a book. Like, I don't ever read a book and I'm just like, this is so bad. Like, I just can't, like, 1 star. I mean, there's been a couple books I've probably given 1 stars to that I thought just were like, I don't really hate a book unless I feel like an author, like, cheated an idea, or, like, I feel like they stole the idea from somebody else, or they just were real lazy in it, stuff like that. Like, that, it doesn't really bother me about the book. Like, if somebody like makes a hard attempt to write a book and develop characters, like, hey, listen, they tried something nobody else did. You know what I mean? So I kind of live for that. So I would never, like, and I usually finish the books I write. I mean, cozy mysteries, I can tell you, are not the best well-written books in the entire world, but I still live for them, you know? Most healing, emotionally rewarding book you've read that maybe you weren't expecting to have that effect. Definitely Codependent No More by Melody Beatty. It's probably one of my favorite books of life. I did not consider myself codependent when I read the book. I did not, and somebody just said, oh, it's a great recovery book. People in recovery read it. It's not considered really a recovery book. But it really defined or changed for me my definition of how I look at relationships in my life. It was just profound. And still to this day, it's the book that I give out the most. I always keep copies of it, and I give it out to people all the time because it really changed how I interact with people in my personal life in every aspect, from work to friendships to family to neighbors to whatever, and just how I define myself in my relationship to other people. Codependent No More by Melody Beatty is literally life-changing, and I never thought it would do that to me. Okay, somebody asked me about a book I've never heard of. What is something that can totally ruin an otherwise good book? When it's super, super predictable. I don't love, I like a surprise ending, especially in a thriller. I don't like when it's predictable. Have you read any of the classics? The Scarlet Letter, Pride and Prejudice, etc.? Okay, so my undergraduate degree is in English. So yes, I've read many, many of the classics. Probably not some of the favorites. The last book that was 5 stars. The last book that I read that was 5 stars. Let's go in here and look to my Goodreads. Okay. Reading challenge. I give a lot of 4 and 5 stars, just so you know. I don't really like, I usually, the last book that I read, Julia Takes a Breath, was the last book that I finished. I gave it 4 stars. Listen for the Lie will be 5 stars. Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera, which was the March book for Peter's Book Club, was the last 5-star book that I gave. Do you want to know what it was before that? Okay, let's look. While Idaho Slept, The Answers for the Idaho Murders, 3 stars. Oh, okay, because it was just very textual. The Firm and the Exchange, I gave 4 stars. None of This Is True by, what's her name? Diana Jewell? Lisa Jewell. I give that 5 stars as well. It's not showing that. Okay, I give that 5 stars as well. I thought that was really, really good. Stacy recommended that to me. Stacy and I, that watches my videos, Stacy, you know, we read a lot of the same things. So she recommended that book to me, and I was like, I always like her recommendation, so I went right there, and I was like, I'm gonna read this book, and I did, and I loved it. It's about a podcast. It's about a murder and a podcast, or it's a thriller, and it's about a podcast. Okay, I'm still not getting to a lot of these questions. Hold on a second. Oh, I've read some of these. Okay. What books would you recommend for someone who wants to start reading? I get asked this question, I feel like, all the time. What I would recommend is not reading a super long book, finding a shorter book. And what I would do is recommend going to the library or the bookstore and going up to somebody that works there and say, this is something I'm really interested in. Like, I love cooking, or if you're wanting to read fiction, and say, I love cooking, or I love this, or I love that. Do you have any fiction books that are about that are shorter? I'm a new reader. Don't be embarrassed about it. There are a lot of new readers out there. And say, I want to try this. You know, if you want to listen to an audiobook, pick an audiobook out. I think you can do an audio membership and try it for 30 days for free. You can try it and see if you like it. Tani can't listen to audiobooks. Caroline loves them. I love them. You know, and maybe it's just a personal thing, and try an audiobook and see if you like listening to it. If not, then go to a bookstore, go to like a used bookstore, Goodwill. Just pick up books and find one that you think you might like, you know? One of the things I typically do is I look at like the New York Times bestseller list, and if like, I do this with Netflix too, with shows. If a book has been on the New York Times bestseller list for like 100 weeks, I'm like, well, it can't be that bad. It can't have been on the New York Times bestseller list for that long. You know what I'm saying? And so I'll pick a book that way. And I just wouldn't pick a super long book, because then you don't. Super long books for me are a long commitment. And so unless I think it's a book that I'm really going to like, I won't do that commitment. And that's what I would recommend. Favorite narrative memoir about mental health. I don't read a lot of memoirs about mental health, but about addiction, I said this already, A Blackout, Remembering the Things I Drank to Forget. Okay. What classic author do you think is overrated? Well, they're probably not overrated if they're a classic author, do you think? Like, who's somebody that I've read that I just don't think is that good? I can't even really think, honestly. I don't really read a lot of, oh God, what are those ones? Oh, my mom loved them. Like the Wuthering Heights, the Bronte sisters. I know people love them. I cannot get into those Bronte sister books. Okay. Which fiction book really touched you deep down in your soul, and why? I mean, so many. I read so many that really do. The one that comes to mind is Wally Lamb's, I mean, I literally, this is not the video I should have made today. I want to say this much as I know is true, but that's his other book. She's Come Undone. Wally Lamb's She's Come Undone, which I've read now twice in my life. It had a different meaning. It's about grief. And it had a different meaning to me when I originally read it than when I read it just a couple years ago, and for the book club. And it really, really impacted me the second time I read it, because I had suffered so much grief in my life. It is such a book about therapy, grief, and closure. It is such a fantastic book. And it really touched me deep. I wouldn't say it affected me as much as it did the first time, though, the second time reading it. Catcher in the Rye is another book that just touches me in my soul completely. I feel like Holden Caulfield gets me. You know, the book is just, it's such a sadly tragic book. Do you enjoy horror novels? And if so, what kinds of authors? I do. It's so funny because people always recommend to me Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. Like, that's a recommendation they put in a lot of my videos. And it's funny because I read that like 4 years ago. I read almost everything by Grady Hendrix. I love Grady Hendrix. I do read quite a bit of horror. I did more back in the day. Richard Lehman, that's the joke with Mel. She always puts Endless Night. She put it in the last video comment because he writes a lot of horror novels. And I love Richard Lehman, but I haven't read him in a couple years. I haven't read as much horror the last couple years. The last horror book that I read was Grady Hendrix, and it was called How to Sell a Haunted House, and it was horrible. It was one of the worst books I've ever read in my life, honestly, and it just was not fully realized, and it was about dolls coming to life, attacking people, and I was like, okay, I've kind of lost it. So, I like to read horror in the summer. As someone just getting back into reading as an adult, what's the best app or tracker? I love Goodreads, but there's several of them out there. What's top 5 books that are easily repeat reads to you? I mean, it's hard for me because I don't really read a lot of books, you know? Tips on how not to get distracted when listening to audiobooks. If I'm listening to a really good audiobook, like something I'm really into, I don't get distracted. If it's a book I'm not really into, I get easily distracted. So read a book that you're going to love, I'll tell you that. Like, there are some books that I have to tell you that, like I said, I don't like to DNF books. So there's been some books that I've literally listened to at like 3 times speed, which I think is the fastest, just to get through it. And so, yeah, I'm just like, I got to finish this book. Have you read any Stephen King? I've started a lot of Stephen King. I've read one book of Stephen King's, and it was I feel like people that read Stephen King are really committed writers, like the novels are so long. I read a book that he did with Stuart O'Nan. It was actually a novella called, like, The Face in the Crowd or something like that. It was a novella because I love Stuart O'Nan, who is friends with Stephen King, so that's why I read that. I don't know if you've answered this before, but have you read the Twilight series? I read them all in a week. I did not read them all in a week. I did read all the Twilight books. I actually read, so inside the door, if you go turn left, is our garage, and there's a little step there. I read the last 2, literally on that step in the coldest of winter, and I just binged them. The books for me were like, I don't know what order they go in anymore, but I loved Twilight, the first one. The next one, which was at New Moon or something like that, I didn't love. No, I think it was backwards. So, like, Twilight, the book, I didn't love, but the movie I did. The second book, which was the one where is that Jacob comes, I liked that book, but I didn't like the movie. Whatever book I liked, I didn't like the movie of it, which was interesting. And yes, I read them all. I also read all the 50 Shades of Grey books because friends of mine were reading them at the time. I thought they were so cliffhanger that you had to read the next one, and I don't think they were horribly written. I think the stories were developed right. I thought the writing was cheesy. That's what I thought. Thoughts on The Secret? Oh, that's an interesting question. I've read The Secret a couple times. I love her books. Rhonda Byrne, she's the one that wrote, Rhonda Byrne, is that her name, I think? The Secret? Rhonda Byrne, let's see. The Secret book. So, on my Peterisms channel, I've done the book Magic that she has. Rhonda Byrne, yeah. She has a book called Magic out, which is 28 Days of Gratitude, and I've done that book over there on that channel several times, and I love it. I think The Secret is misunderstood sometimes. I think people think that, for me, this is what I think about it. And I really thought a lot about it in my life and talked to friends of mine about it that really believe in it. I really believe in the power of visualization, manifestation. I really believe. But I think it's not necessarily about, like, I want a Porsche, there's going to be a Porsche. I think it's like, I see myself driving a Porsche. I envision myself going to this job. Well, I'm never going to drive again, but going to, you know, let's just use that as an example. Like, okay, living in this house. I imagine myself living in this house, coming home, going to work from that house, going to this job. It's like, what does it take to have that house? I think it inspires a different mindset. I think when you have that different mindset, then you push yourself harder to do this or do that. And maybe you don't have that exact same house, but maybe you do have at some point own a house, and that pushes you in that direction. I don't just think that manifesting things and visualizing things happen. I think, you know, I love the recovery joke. It's like this guy's drowning out in the middle of the ocean, and you know, he's praying to God, save me, and a boat comes by, and they're like, get in the boat, and he's like, no, God's gonna save me. And you know, then a helicopter comes by, and they're like, you know, come up the ladder, and he's like, no, God's gonna save me, and he dies and goes to heaven. And he's like, God, like, I prayed and I believed in you. Why didn't you save me? And God's like, I sent a boat, I sent a helicopter. What more do you want? I think that's really how The Secret works. If you want something bad enough about it, if you want something bad enough and you visualize and you manifest it enough, I think you have to do the work behind it as well. The visualization part is seeing yourself. The work is getting yourself there. And that's what I think about The Secret. Anyway, I didn't even get to all the questions again, and we're almost at the 30-minute mark, so I'm going to stop this. But anyway, thank you so much for the questions. I had fun doing this. I love you guys, and I will see you in my next BookTube video. Bye.